Okay, everybody, let's do another episode of On Point EDC. Today we have another cool update for you from the brand Kizer. It's been a while since I featured a Kizer on the channel, but they're a great brand. Honestly, they were founded back in 2012. They are made in China, so if that bothers you, that might be a thing. And in terms of their market segment, they really try to go for those high-end qualities, but just more so at mid-range prices. And they even have expanded into quite a few entry-level offerings within their Vanguard series. Now, in terms of the type of the knife this would be, I'd consider an EDC folding utility knife. So really some key common characteristics in design language, and you're looking for something within that space, you're really going to want that pocketable size and versatile blade. This is their Kizer nomenclature KI4562E4, or the White Mountain Knives exclusive Cormorant. And it's basically an in-house design by U-Gauge, and it's a button lock folder, and it has this unique premium take on the popular Vanguard line model. So this one actually was released first within the affordable line, and this is kind of the classed up version of it. It has this cool titanium handle, and then the cool double X pattern, and an M390 blade steel, which is great. You can get this exclusively from White Mountain Knives for $199, which for some of you might be very expensive, at about 200 bucks, but some of you might hear that and go, oh wow, that's actually really cheap. So again, those things are just kind of very subjective, just like watches. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now before we jump totally in, just customary wristwatch check here. I have on my, actually this is not mine, this is a pre-production prototype of the Baltic Aquascape or Aquascaf, and this is the titanium model, and it is very nice. I do have it on this great Artem dark navy blue sailcloth strap. Looks fantastic, great pairing, and titanium, you know, kind of off the beaten path in terms of a brand that isn't completely mainstream, but I think a lot of you guys on the EDC side could enjoy. So if you do want to get more info on this, definitely check the channel history for the full review. But in terms of this knife here, so Kizer makes really cool knives. I was really introduced to this brand thanks to designs of Ray Laconico. That really helped the brand kind of springboard off. And, you know, they made a lot of different knives from other makers as well, other designers. That's something that I really can appreciate from Kizer. But now they're even branching out, having some of their own in-house designs, and this is one of them. And for me, this one really jumped out. A lot of it has to do with the fact that it's a button lock, and then it has M390 blade steel, hollow ground, and it has this really unique, interesting titanium handle and a beautifully executed deep carry pocket clip. So it's actually milled and done really well and looks really good. So other makers, take note, this is how it's done. I did want to show you guys really quick, nifty little kind of interior case. So it comes inside your standard box, but then you do get this cool little pouch with it, which is actually kind of useful for storage purposes. So very nice and fits really cool. So you don't always get that with every single brand. So when it does happen, I figured I'd share. Now let's get to kind of the defining factor of this knife really is how fidgetable and deployable it is. Like, you can do it, I mean, at least 6 different ways. So I'm going to start one, which is that rear flipper, and then let's go for 2, thumb front flip, 3, thumb open from the hole, 4, Spidey flick, 5, let's go for the pinch and drop. Okay, and then 6 is just pressing the button and flipping it out. So there's a lot of different ways you can engage this, and it's a lot of fun to, I mean, I'm typically not somebody that can spider flick a knife to open it, but I can absolutely do that here. So A lot of fun, extremely fidgetable, and I think the fun nature even kind of comes down to the little graphics that have been milled into this great titanium scale. Although I do wish that this was flat, but it's flush. But I do get that, hey, in case you want to carry it left-handed, then you could do that. I carry pretty much right-handed. I do everything but right with my right hand. So right hand dominant, right eye dominant, shoot right-handed, bat right-handed, throw right-handed. My right arm is my stronger arm, but my left hand, for some reason, that's the one that I write and can draw with and everything. So that's why I wear my wristwatch on the other wrist, so that when I'm writing, my watch isn't clinking along the table. So some more information about this. Like I mentioned, Bowler M390, which is really a super steel. It's a real darling. But I mean, there's other stuff that's out there that is, you know, now starting to steal headlines. But M390 for me is still a great steel choice. It has this great sheep's foot shaped blade. It is hollow ground, which is fantastic. I'll try to. I actually think this might be listed as flat ground, but looking at it, that's pretty clearly a hollow grind, if you ask me. So very nice. You can see there, extremely thin behind the edge, which is fantastic. So this is a real slicer. You can see even the blade finishing. I mean, it's nothing special, but it definitely does the job. That's a really nice satin on there. And then just, you know, typical of Kizer, they go the extra mile. The edges are nicely beveled and broken. There's nothing sharp like you might find on cheaper knives, or even sometimes knives that cost the same, let's be honest. And yeah, the button lock is exciting. It's a lot of fun. I will say though that there's no other detent besides the button, so if you were to depress this, it's just gonna fall open. I don't know. I feel like at first glance, I don't really like that. I would have preferred there was some type of detent ball or something, so that if the button gets depressed, nothing will happen. Or maybe the button was more inset, so that you wouldn't accidentally do something like that in your pocket. It's never accidentally opened on me, and it's by no means the only knife that has a button release that is kind of very simple like that. But for me, man, and then of course you do get the benefits of the fall shut nature because of how smooth this rides, but also then, you know, it could come loose potentially. So if you're big on safety, you know, button locks in general probably aren't going to be, you know, your bread and butter, but you know, that is something to consider when you are thinking about picking up a knife like this. I think it's actually a great size at just over about 7¼ inches. Blade length comes in about just under 3¼ close length just a touch over 4 inches. So you know, for me, this is the perfect EDC size. The weight's only about 3.4 ounces, so not super heavy, not super lightweight. I think that's pretty much, you know, what something like this should weigh. So you're not going to get some super lightweight carry, but it's also not going to be a big, you know, brick in your pocket either. And then in terms of the ergonomics, I think it fills the hand really well. You can see everything, you know, finds its place really naturally. Your fingers don't really search. And then, you know, your front index finger does kind of, if you want to choke up, you can kind of get into there with this little choil, which is great for more precise cutting. Or if you wanted to do some EDC cuts, I maybe would worry about accidentally squeezing the button if you were getting into some different grasps. So that's also something to consider depending on how you're going to be holding this knife at the end of the day. But for basic cutting tasks, absolutely works. You know, you do have to be very aware, though, of course, of the button lock. So, man, this thing is smooth. The reason why it's so smooth is because it has a ball bearing pivot. So really smooth open and close action, and the detent from the button itself is actually pretty dialed in. It's not, you know, you're not, oh, of course I was going to say you're not going to misfire a lot, and then I was able to misfire it. So it does hold enough, and then like, let's say if I was to shake it out, it's not going to just shake out. So that's something that even with like a traditional, let's say a Benchmade you know, gosh, now I'm spacing out on what those locks are called. Somebody correct me in the comments below. But you guys know what I'm talking about. You pull the little bar here, and basically you can actually shake a lot of those open, like in a 940 or a bug out. You can just give it a little push like this, and without even touching the axis bar, it'll actually just swing open. So it is very secure from that standpoint. Not going to shake, but in terms of, hey, the button gets pressed, this bad boy's going to open. Like, it wants to open, even if you're just, you know, you're there like that. And then of course you do have to disengage the button for it to lock out. So if you were to hold it, it's just going to stay like this. It's not going to, you know, it's basically going to just flop around. So maybe it could be fun for some of you. Maybe it can feel a little bit dicey for others, but I don't mind it at all. So yeah, nice detent from a flipping standpoint. Deployability, it's just extremely fidgetable. So many different ways to get it open, and all of them are awesome. So very cool. I mean, they probably could have you know, made it a little bit simpler, you know, grind one of these off so that it might look a little bit nicer. Maybe this whole area, I mean, if I was designing this knife, I'd probably take this whole piece off and have that filled in, or maybe just have a fuller there. And I bet you with that fuller, because of how good this action is, you could still spidey flip with that, and then you could do like a pinch or a slow open. Essentially, if this was down and was a solid piece and you just had a little fuller, that could be pretty cool. So if you're watching, Kizer, you gauge, designer of this knife, it could be something fun. But it's part of the, I think, the charm of the closed knife, of course, is having this little guy peeking out. So that is probably a thing too. But I think while it's open, I think while it's closed, it looks great. You know, that definitely adds the personality. But I think while it's open, it would just visually be a cleaner design. Could you imagine that? That would look killer. I mean, it would look a little bit like a smock. But yeah, you can imagine this. And then this is just solid. That could be really cool. Or even if you put a thumb stud there, but I think a fuller, you know, with these little cutouts would actually look really cool. Anyways, guys, yeah, you can just open this so many different ways. And then in terms of the pocket, I mean, come on. Killer layout here, guys. Look at this pocket clip. You got the milled section. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is milled. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a combination of milled and spring clip, to where this was milled and it was flat, and then they bend it. You know what? Looking at it closer, it looks like they did bend it. So basically they mill this piece out, they take it, they loop it over, and then they screw it in. So ingenious. Like, why don't more brands do this? Because now you get effectively a milled clip with the deep carry, and it doesn't stick out too much. Like, that's the thing that drives me crazy about milled deep carry clips, is a lot of times they just add so much thickness. This doesn't add any thickness at all, and you're getting that milled portion, which makes it feel more solid, more premium. So I thought that was just really, really smart on their side. So very cool. And of course, full deep carry for those of you that just like have to have the knife as concealed as possible. Really, the only thing that's going to be sticking out of your pocket is going to be that clip and about that much of the handle. So not bad at all. And then, yeah, in the pocket, it lays, of course, it rides really low within the pocket, and then it's pretty flat. It's unobtrusive. I think honestly still pretty compact, even though, yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit meaty from this proportion, but that's also one of the things that makes it feel so good in hand. Like, it doesn't feel like some slim knife that's you know, gonna give you a bunch of hot spots. Like, this feels really, really natural, which I can appreciate. So yeah, that lack of extra thickness because of how smartly they executed that pocket clip really, really impresses me. Now, in terms of model variants, there's also another premium setup with basically a frag pattern, so like kind of a grenade texture to it, milled out, which is really cool. A lot of people like that one. And then it has 20 CV blade steel, and I think that one is a little bit more readily available to get if it's not sold out. Yeah, but I don't think that one is an exclusive like this one that you have to get from White Mountain Knives. And 20 CV is basically just American M390. It's pretty much, from what I understand, it's the same kind of metal combination or recipe, whatever you want to call it. But you can see, look at there's a lot of life to this blade, and the contouring, the finishing, the jimping is nice and serviceable. Nothing crazy, nothing too sharp, but also not useless and not there just for looks. Like it definitely is jimping that's going to work, especially if with just sweaty hand or something like that. I don't know how well it would hold up with work gloves or something like that, but honestly, a knife this size, you're probably not going to want to really be using with gloves. This is, I'd say, on the smaller end. This is definitely something that's going to be more casual use, although it's definitely robust enough for you to, you know, get to some real heavy duty stuff. I just think it's kind of too nice for stuff like that, honestly. But it doesn't cost too much for stuff like that, you know, at about $199. You could really make this a really hard daily cutter for you, and the button lock is secure enough. Again, as long as your button's not pushed in, you're good to go. So in terms of comparable options, size wise, this definitely feels, I'd say, somewhat between like a mini grip and a bug out from Benchmade. So it's a bit of a sweet spot, small enough to where it doesn't feel quite full sized, but big enough to where it doesn't feel mini. It doesn't feel like, hey, this is a compact, purposely small carry. It just, for me, this is right in that Goldilocks range where it feels just about right. And for me, guys, the bottom line is this thing is uniquely handsome with very solid build quality, and then just, you know, the addictive deployment. My goodness. And again, I'm not a Spidey flick guy. This is probably the first knife I've Spidey flicked on the channel, and that just it's a lot of fun. And I love front flippers, and you can front flip this one, and whoa, haha, recovery. So yeah, you can open this one in so many different ways, and you can even slow roll it if you need to, and you can slow roll it different ways. Like you can just let it break the detent, and then if you wanted to slow roll pretty much off any point in the blade, you could easily do that. And you know, everybody loves a little drop action there. So I don't think I would ever just press the button and flip it out. It seems a little silly, especially when you can get so much satisfaction out of just, I don't know, I think maybe I could probably spider flick this with like other fingers. Whoa, the ring finger, look at that. Never even tried that before, and it works. So definitely best done with the middle finger. Can do it with the index. Last one's left is the pinky, right? I'm gonna end up dropping it if I do that. So I think the ring finger is about the farthest I'll go. So anyways, yeah, this thing is addictive. I could just flick this around and play with it all freaking day and just ramble on with you guys, but I will save you from that. So definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.